Okay, tonight we're in the garage. Set up my stuff a little differently so I have some room. These are the linkage from windshield wipers. Needs new bearings on, the new plastic bearings, so I got a bunch off eBay. Hopefully they fit so I don't have to rebuy them like I did the last time. We're going to clean these up, put some primer on them, probably paint them black, and stick them back in the car. Nothing like a video of cleaning up parts. When I initially put the car together a couple years ago, I was going to take it down to so far as at the strip. I did a rush job, stuck it all together. So they didn't really care if it was treatable just as long as it go down the strip. Well, one thing led to another. That didn't happen. Maybe you want to look at me and say, "Priestess, who knows? I might be interesting." So, some of the problems it had is that, well, one thing, the windshield wipers didn't work. I could hear the motor turn on, but the wipers didn't turn. And you got up there, when I pulled the heater core out, I could take a better look up there and see what was going on. And these things, well, the bushings had rotted out of it. Amazing. And they were just laying there. In fact, they all happened with all the bushings in this main shaft right here. Right out one weekend, about a month ago. They're good up until then. Went out there and looked the next day, and all falling on the ground. Go figure. Anyway, we'll clean them up, make them look nice, stick them back in, and we'll probably do some other work up underneath the dash now I got the heater box out of it. It opens a lot of room. I know there's a little bit of surface rust in the firewall up there. That needs to be scraped down. Probably put some rust sealer on it and repaint into a reasonable color. Probably a flat back because who cares? Nobody looks up there anyway. And when that gets done, we'll assemble the car. And when I get done, that'll part work hopefully. Hopefully the heater box will turn on. We'll put a new switch in. Gotta replace the blower motor, and there's a fuse panel thing we have to fix. Took the radiator out because it's 1980s called. They want the radio stereo back. I already took all the wire out for it when I was up there. Did my ammeter bypass on it. I did that about 3 years ago. When I get hooked all the car up, I tried to start it up and it wouldn't start. And in 1974 they have the seat belt interlock system, it's a 1 year only. There's a little fairly primitive computer. It sits up next to where the ECU for the ignition sits. And it had been partially disconnected. But it was still active. It means it's still getting power. There's maybe still making decisions. So I took the whole damn thing out. And when I was doing that, I figured out, well, I might as well do a ammeter bypass. Why not? They're digging around the ignition with the wiring loop anyway. So I use basically the Mad Electric one. I think anybody who has a Mopar knows about the Mad Electric site, where they do a ammeter bypass on a mid-80s Dodge truck. And if you read some more of their stuff, especially when they do the same thing on a Chev, an older Chev, they use what they call a bus bar. And on the Chev, to make the bus bar the horn button circuit, apparently it has a big bolt on it. I'm not really familiar how the Chevy electronics of the Chev works. Never had to tear it apart before. And so I don't really know all the deals about it. But I was thinking about that. It says, you know, that's not a bad idea. Use a bus bar in my Dodge. Why not? They don't recommend it. Multiple sites on the internet don't recommend it. In fact, most of them don't even think the Mad Electric system is bad. So I made a bus bar. The bus bar is the stud on the starter relay switch where the ignition wires go to. That's my common point for all the wiring under the Duster right now for the hot side. There's another side over by the battery where in '74 they grounded the wiring there for the headlight circuit with a 1/8 inch screw. So I said, okay, that's going to be the other grounding point. That'll be the ground. How do I make that the most efficient way of doing it? Huh, not too bad. So, I like the marine style battery terminals where they use a wing net to hold everything together. So I ran a 10 gauge wire from the ground on that to that place over there and started hooking up all the other grounds to one spot. I also got the flat ribbon cable that runs off the engine to the firewall in the cab. That's still there. I didn't take it off. Why bother? Grounds are good, especially if I decide to EFI this car. Need a lot of good grounds to do that. You need circuits. You need the circuits to be more relatively friendly to EFI. Most 74 Duster has no idea what an EFI is. They never set up to run it, so it doesn't know. So with these older cars like this, you got to work hard to make the grounds work. Get rid of all the RFI and EMI problems. Most of the TBI retrofit kits don't even talk about this type of stuff. It's this, they advertise as plug in and go. Usually it's not plug in and go, it's plug in and play. And sometimes people get lucky and they don't have to play very much, it just works. And sometimes they don't get lucky and they have to go out and mess with it. And those are the ones that always go on the internet and complain about how terrible it is, only to be told that how wonderful it is by the guys that had it work perfectly. So EFI in old cars is not a it's not a, how can I say this, it's not cut and dried. It is in the new cars. New cars, the factory do it. Old cars, there's no quality control on them. The only quality control they did on the original build was, in my case, 47 years ago. And back then, they said, like, this is the old thing, you know, you don't buy a car that's made on Friday or Monday. And the reason why is because the people put these cars together back then on a Friday, they're waiting to get out of the office or out off the assembly line. On a Monday, they're hanging over and they come back to the assembly line. So the work quality on those 2 days goes down the hill. At least that's the theory. I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't work in Detroit at that time. I have no idea. But some people wrote books about it. And it came some of a truism. So that's what the old cars suffer from. Not bad. Getting all the old grease out of there. Huh. But I guess my car was made on my Duster. I guess the Duster was made on a Wednesday. It's 47 years old. And it's still dry. It still starts up. We'll go down the street in its own power. Turn signals sort of work. The headlights don't work because I think the bulb's all burned out. Turn signals, they should work, but there could be a bad switch someplace. And I think most of the bad switches in this car have been caused by setting too long. They just corroded over the years. You gotta run these old things, or else they just corrode. So that fancy car that sits in the museum is probably worse shape than my 47-year-old Duster that I hopefully can drive on a somewhat relative basis. I don't know if it will or not. But it makes it for an interesting thought experiment to do it. My 65, which I've owned now for 25 years, I daily drove that for maybe 15 years of its life. I stopped doing it when I realized that my insurance company would total the car out instead of repairing it. 65 is even older than 74. It's another 9 years older, so that's what, 56 years old now. Almost as old as I am. But not quite, I'm still older. 66-year-old car don't have dusters littering the junkyards anymore like they did 30 or 40 years ago. You're actually kind of fortunate if you see an old Dodge Dart in a junkyard nowadays. They're gone. They went out and made Subarus and Hondas and Datsuns or Nissans or whatever you want to call it. Those old cars are gone. The engines in them are gone. All the stuff's gone. One of the reasons why the price of all this old stuff is going up. Can't buy it anymore. Can't go to the junkyard and buy it anymore. It's always funny because slant sixes are disappearing. And you go in places like ForABodiesOnly.com or even that matter, slant6.org. They always say, oh, the slant 6, they made 12.5 million of them. Yeah, how many of them are actually left? They made 12.5 million of them 50 years ago. Or they stopped making them in 87. Or maybe 90, depends on who you talk to. Might have made them down in Mexico though a couple years longer. Hell, they might have made them down in Argentina and Chile for all we know, for even longer yet. But those engines are gone. They're getting scarce. People take them out of their cars. They want to put a 360 or a 440 in the car. Ruins the value of the car. And they throw it away. They're just gone. They get junked. And I think the car is more interesting with the slant 6 than anyway. That's my personal opinion. But then I'm a slant 6 guy. So that would have to be my opinion. Anyway, all those parts are disappearing. Have to start buying real car parts. It's like the switch for the heater box. I couldn't believe I could actually buy a new one that fit in there. It's not exactly the same, but it's new enough. And it gets the job done, hopefully. Now that I had a putty knife around here. Yeah, apparently I don't. When in doubt, use a screwdriver as a putty knife. Okay, where was I talking about? Oh yeah. All the old cars are gone, disappearing. You gotta know your parts books basically better than the counter person does in order to order stuff. I've been known to go in the parts store if I want to get some for a slant 6. I'll order one for an 87 Dodge pickup truck. Why not? They're the same engine up till the very end. Yeah, there's some minor differences between them, but not for spark plugs, fan belts, bell cover gaskets and stuff like that. That's all the same. Well, no, not in 87. They changed that in 80. But you can find that stuff, and you can get it, and you need to know your parts book. You can order from the right car and get your stuff. You gotta outsmart the parts book, because the kids that run the stores, just like the kids that run the stores when I was young, they don't know a damn thing about it. When I was in high school, I had a friend that had bought himself a 56 Chev hot rod, and that was standard practice back then. It was raised up on all four corners. They jacked up the rear springs with spring extensions on the back, and they put spacers in the coil springs in front to raise it up about 3 inches. It looked all right. If you like that style, of course in 74, 75, that was the style, and there's more cars like that than there wasn't. I think I got these clean. Ooh, nice and shiny. Nice and shiny again. But anyway, wanted to buy parts for that. That was 56, and that was in around roughly 74, let's say. You could go to Shucks, which was bought up by O'Reilly's in later years, but Shucks wouldn't have the parts for it. You might be able to find the smart guy behind the Napa counter that could look the parts up for you. If you couldn't get it there, you had to go to a specialty parts store. This is for a 56 Chev in 1974. So the parts disappeared. It's amazing I can buy parts for my 74 Duster in 2022 and actually have it in stock. It's amazing. So there must be some money in this stuff, or else the people, the bookkeepers, wouldn't be doing this. And I mean the bookkeepers are the guys that control the accounts that make sure that they save a penny on every part that gets made so they can maximize the profit out of it. That's the only reason they're doing this. They're not doing this because they love old parts or old cars. They're making money off this stuff. And I think that's what gets me when you listen to Uncle Tony on his channel and he's saying, oh my God, the parts are crap. We gotta do something. You gotta hoard all these parts so you get more. So when the shit hits the fan, we all have parts for our cars. Well, one thing, if the shit hits the fan, we're not gonna worry about our cars. There's other more important things to worry about. But I think we're lucky that they're still selling this stuff. We may go into Cantor to buy this stuff. We may have to go to Cantor one of these days to buy points in this condenser and a cylinder cap for 74 Duster. Well, a Duster doesn't use 74 points, but you know what I'm saying. 64 Dart you would. I don't know. 19 minutes. Huh, not bad. 19 minutes and didn't say anything useful. I think as good as a politician. Okay, I'm going to prime these things and give them a final coat tomorrow. Tell you the things you're making. I do silver, but I don't need silver paint on that, and I don't want to buy any paint. Maybe end up being Ford semi-gloss black. Nice color, I like that one. Okay, let's get a block and stick this on so we can paint it. Just that brown, we don't want that. Whatever that was. Gray engine primer. That should work. Yeah, just leave a gray engine primer. You guys want to watch this? There we go. We'll let that dry. We'll flip it over and paint the other side. Firm believer, putting your tools away. Let's see if you can see me again. Not that everybody wants to. I don't know how much time I spent on wasting my time looking for tools I sit down. It's happened to everybody. I set that 1/2-inch wrench down on something, try to pick it up, and 10 minutes of searching and finally find it again. It's not a sign of going old. That's why I try to put my tools all in the same spot so I know where they're at. When you get old, you start learning things. Some of that stuff you learn is even useful. There's Big Banner show up now in Alfred's letter. Okay, let's do the other side. For those who like watching me paint, you know I'm an expert at it. Oops. Almost an expert dropping my camera on the floor. Okay. We'll let that dry and we'll pick up again later on. 26 minutes of paint apart. Wow.